The collapse of the regime will happen. People of Iran has always been ready to pay the price. But we need to be careful about the situation now and the situation after that transition, because either we're going to end up, as we discuss a lot nowadays, with a great Iran, or we're going to end up with a disaster.
In this Truest episode, we are going inside Iran with someone who's lived the cost of resistance. My guest, Hejar Berenji, joined the Kurdish resistance at the age of 14. He was arrested by the Islamic Republic, later forced to flee, and was granted political asylum in Canada. In his private life, Hejar is a media technology specialist. In his public life, he continues to resist the regime. Tonight, he's speaking to us from an undisclosed location in the Middle East. Hejar is giving us a unique insight into something that hasn't been spoken about in the media before, how the regime is beginning to split with the IRGC, and the message is directly in front of our eyes. Now that we are nearing almost 2 weeks of protests, and the people are in the streets day and night, the question is no longer if the regime is going to be challenged. The question is, who is going to break first, the protesters or the Islamic Republic? My analysis with Hejar is coming next. Hejar, thank you so much for joining me and the audience at True East.
Thank you very much for having me, Doron. It's a pleasure.
You know, I understand that you're in the Middle East right now. We're going to keep it an undisclosed location for your private safety. Since this is the first time that you're joining our podcast, it's important for me that our audience hears a little bit about what I know about you, that already at the age of 14, you had already found yourself in a difficult situation in Iran as a Kurd. Could you just give us, to start off with, Hejar, a little bit of background on your life and the regime?
Thank you very much, Doron. Again, thanks very much for having me. Let me send my greatest regard to your audience and the great people of Israel and all the friends of Israel. It's very interesting, Doron. I was born in a Kurdish town of Naghada in northwest Iran, where historically we lived side by side with the Jews and Christians and the Azeris. The city itself has a history, and obviously afterwards we had our Jews neighbors moving back to Israel and Christians moving to Urmia, as it was the closest city over there. So I was growing up in the middle of all those conflicts. I was born, I should say, right at the time of the revolution of 79. And basically, I'm the generation of after 79, basically. I was born from a Kurdish family. My family was under a lot of pressure, like all the other Kurds in this area after the revolution by the Islamic Republic. So I joined the Kurdish struggle at the age of 14, became a Peshmerga, as most of the Israelis are nowadays familiar with this name. We are the Kurdish freedom fighters. So I was in an armed struggle against the Iranian government for a few years, and after spending some time as political prisoner and then escaping Iran to Turkey, I was a political refugee, spent a few years in Turkey. And then I was sponsored by Canadian government. I was very lucky to go to Canada, continue my study, learn my language skills, and then work as a broadcast technical specialist. However, during all those times, I have kept up with the developments inside Iran and focusing on the Kurdish region and the nations living inside Iran. We have very good contacts inside, and we have tried to stay beside the people over there to empower them and to help them to get to that point that hopefully we'll see some bright days coming up.
Well, again, I want to thank you not only for joining us, but for what you're doing. I think to try to get the real picture, which is what we're going to try to unpack here, and not what the Iranian media and even some of the mass media are putting out is really key. And I appreciate that you're doing this, and whatever personal risk. Really, it's just incredibly admirable that you're doing this. So thank you.
You are most welcome, Doron. It's a mission, it's a cause that we have already sacrificed for it, and we are ready to do more sacrifice for it. I think what you guys are doing, it's tremendous. It's amazing because not only that Iranian media is showing only one side. Unfortunately, even the mainstream media outside sees only some voices and some vocals. And I hope that I could be the voice of the ones who are missing on the mainstream media nowadays in this situation.
So on that note, let's go into the ground. We're looking now, we're almost nearing 2 weeks of protests in the next couple of days. People have been protesting in the day, protesting in the night. I've heard, 30 people have been killed, maybe more have been killed. It's, of course, getting information out of there is very difficult. We know that the Islamic regime is trying to limit any ability for information to get out. Take us on the ground, Hejar, if you would, and let us know what's happening right now.
What is happening on the ground right now, Doron, as you mentioned, is basically horrific. People are fed up. Islamic Republic, it's at the border of demolishment. So the regime has already expired inside. They have nothing left over there to defend, really. Ideologically, they have expired. Every slogan that they would try to protect themselves and to protect the Islamic regime with it is expired. Everything they played in terms of the economy, the ties, the benefits, everything is over. So people are fed up. People are at the point of turning. It's just a matter that the collapse of the regime, I can say that the collapse of the regime will happen. But we need to be careful about the situation now and the situation after that transition, because either we're going to end up, as we discuss a lot nowadays, with a great Iran, as we all want it, or we're going to end up with a disaster after the situation. And, nowadays that everyone is talking about bright days, we all want those bright days. We all want this government to be over. We all want to get over this. And now people are on the street. They are struggling. They don't have anything to lose. They go in with bare hands. They go in with protest, and their answer is being in like Tehran on some central areas, mainly with anti-demonstration forces. However, when we go more towards the Kurdish part and the west part, as we saw in the cities of Ilam, Abdanan, and like in the Malak Shahi in special, in particular, that people have been shot with like professional war bullets, as they have always done during the Women Life Freedom, the Jina movement, as we have seen in Kurdistan of Iran. People are basically struggling with their bare hands. And even the cities, the cities that are not have been seen in the news or social media, that they have not joined the uprising yet, they have not joined the demonstrations yet, they are getting ready. As we saw, it was a very good news that yesterday we saw a declaration from 7 Kurdish parties, because a lot of people are asking, during Women Life Freedom movement, we saw a lot of uprising from Sagres, from Sanandaj, from Urumia, from Mahabad. Why this time they are quiet? Because they were waiting for their organizations, for their opposition parties to get together, to have a plan, and to see a clear path forward, and then start it. So yesterday we saw, thankfully, that 7 Kurdish parties, basically every single Kurdish political party of Iran, got together. They released a declaration. They backed all the demonstrations, and they have asked all the people of Iranian Kurdistan to join the protest and to join the uprising on Thursday by closing their shops, by not going out, by staying in their houses on Thursday. So we are expecting a huge movement starting in the Iranian Kurdistan on Thursday, on top of everything else that's been happening in the country.
For our viewers and our listeners, if I understand, the Kurdish community is around 9 to 10 million, perhaps more. You can correct me on that, which means it's between 10 and 15% of the Iranian population. This is not a small number of people. So I see, is that correct, those numbers?
What we know is that if we go even based on the numbers that the Iranian government releases from the provinces of Urumiyeh, Kurdistan as the century, Sanandaj, Ilam, and also parts of Lorestan, we assume that there is 10 to 12. We believe that there is 10 to 12 million Kurds living in Iranian Kurdistan right now. As you know, the nations within the borders of Iran are creating a very important part of that great country. We have Azeris, that they are close to 35 million of this country. We have Baluchis on the side.
It's important to say there's more Azeris than there are native Persians. Is that correct?
my great friend in one of your previous shows mentioned that Azeris
Dr.
are the
Harold Rode.
greatest nation.
Yes, Dr. Harold Rode.
Basic, correct. As Dr. Rode mentioned, who I highly respect him for his knowledge on Iran and everything. As he mentioned, Azeris are the largest nation living within Iranian borders. Now, kindly, please don't spark it, because some of my fellow Iranians that I love them all, from any nation, any views or anything, they get upset when we say Iranian nationals. It's because within Iran we have nations, we have Arabs, that they are a separated nation. Yes, we all create that great country that's called Iran, and I do have the most respect. And as I said, our goal is to make Iran great again. However, to make Iran great again, we need to bring every single one who defines themselves as Iranians together to create that bright future for Iran.
So that's one of the main points I want to focus on, which is when you look at a protest, usually there are two keys to a protest. One is you usually have some type of figure. I'm curious, I want to discuss that with you in the future, if it's the exiled prince, as he's called, or someone else. And then there's the organizational element. What at least I'm seeing on Telegram, and I'm trying to get as much information as I can, it looks like they are smaller crowds than they were at the Women Life Freedom Movement, which is in 2022. Is that true? And what does that mean about the possibility of this protest succeeding, if success means overthrowing this regime?
Look, Doron, we all want this regime to be changed, because we are not going to get to the why of it, because we all have so many different reasons that we believe that changing the Islamic regime is basically the first step towards a stable region, a stable Iran, a great Iran, creating better future for the people of Iran. And not only Iran, the region, because we know that Iran is the main point of disability in the region, and it goes against every single values of democracy and human rights and all the stability that the whole world need, actually. Now, in terms of what you mentioned, yes, the crowd, the number of crowd in some parts are smaller. Yesterday, the crowd that we saw in Abdanan, in Ilam, it's tremendous. This crowd is unbelievable. But what you mentioned is correct. However, we have seen that this time the demonstrations are spread through more areas of Iran. We see more areas coming out. We saw Bazaar of Tehran joining the first step over there. However, we need to be very careful. This movement, it's not only an economy movement. This movement is a movement to free Iranian people from suppression, from everything that Iranian Islamic regime has done to every single person in Iran, from Persians, from Azeris, to Arabs, to Kurds, to Lurs, to Turkmens in Iran, that they have done it. And every single one of them wants to have a part from that freedom that they are envisioning an objection to in the future of Iran. And to make that happen, we need to give all those people a hope. And the hope is not just by giving them slogans. It's not just by telling them that we will be great, Iran will be great. As I mentioned in the beginning of this interview, Doron, we know that Iranian regime is expired. So we have two paths forward. The collapse will happen. There is no way. The collapse will happen. There is no survival for the Islamic regime this time. And I'm not just telling you that through this demonstration in a day or two or three, that could be flexible. But Islamic Republic is expired, and it's at the verge of collapse. How? Now, right after Islamic regime, we have two paths forward. A path that we could be inclusive of every single Democrat Iranian who believes into a bright future for Iranians, who believe into the people of Iran, the people of inside Evin prison right now, every single prison in Iran, from Urumiyeh to Zahedan, to Sanandaj, to Khorasan, to Mashhad, to Rasht in the north of Iran. We need to give them that hope, and we need to respect their struggle inside, because they are the real leaders of this movement, and we need to give them power. Every single one of us this mission outside, to create that environment outside, to give them hope and to give them the idea that the future is inclusive. Whenever we show them, nowadays, when you go to media, there is a lot of discussion around alternative. Everyone speaks about alternative. There is no alternative. Well, the alternative needs to be inclusive, Doron. When we say that, we should not be excluding anyone from good Iranians except supporters of Islamic regime. There is only one enemy of all of us, and this is the Islamic regime. And for that, we need to be all included in the struggle, because in the 40 some years ago, Kurds, Persians, Azeris, Lors, Arabs, Turkmens, regardless of their nationality, regardless of their being Sunni, being Shia, being Christian, being Jews, being Alawis, being the Baha'is, they have always been under repression. As a Kurdish person from Iran, as an Iranian Kurd, I have been under pressure as a person who believes in democracy, as a person who fights for freedom of humans, as a Kurd, as a Sunni. Doesn't matter how much I practice my religious beliefs, but I have been under pressure because of that. So you need to understand that every single Iranian has objectives and goals for the next step after Iranian regime. Just going and using the media outlets and giving slogans would not make the future of Iran. It would not be a really realistic plan forward.
So I want to actually ask you about this, exactly where you're heading right now. We have Ayatollah Khamenei, who's been at the helm of this, terror state, the largest terror state in the world. I agree with you where we open. He seems to have failed on every single front. And the same masses that put him in power today want to forget that they put him in power and have dreams, and we'll speak about it in a minute, of the day after, the Shah's son, an open and free system. But I want to take a step back. What we're looking at today are protesters who are risking their lives and in fact are dying for this protest. Between that and the eventual the death of the Ayatollah by old age could take 5 years, could take 1 year, could take 15 years, God forbid. What is it that these people that are in the streets are able to do, or are we able to do? What is the tipping point for this to change? I mean, do you see Khamenei relinquishing power?
I don't see Khamenei relinquishing power. This regime does understand only one language, though, which is force and power. That's why the support of President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu plays a huge role, giving and empowering, giving the hope to the Iranian people. So many times in the past, we have seen administrations in different countries, in the White House, that they didn't believe the real voice of the people inside Iran, and they gave room for so-called reformists within Islamic regime. The support of Western allies, the support of Israel, the support of United States, it's crucial and instrumental in the change that Iran needs, in the support that Iranian demonstrations and people need in the prisons, on the streets, in every single small and large cities of Iran. Now, having said that, that tipping point is the time that we, all oppositions of the Islamic Republic, we become one force. And instead of labeling each other by such labels as lefties, righties, separatists, not separatists, these are actually not giving hope to the Iranian people. It's time for the unification. It's time for all my fellow Iranians, regardless of their races, their language, their religion, their political beliefs, whether you believe in a Shah system or to a democratic secular system, to anything. It's time to all get together. It's time to give us all equality, because keep in mind, one of the main reasons that Iranian people are not happy with the situation right now is that they are not being treated equally. Each one of them is being treated in a different way. So if we are not showing all Iranians, from Zahedan to Urumiyeh, to Maku, to Ilam, to Mashhad, to Tabriz, to Erdebil, if you are not showing them a future of equality, if you are not showing them a future of inclusivity, if you are not excluding any of them there, then how can we give that hope to them?
Of
Are
course.
we going to
And I
do
have a question,
Iran?
Hejar, on this, again, on this subject. You have connections, I know, deeply inside of Iran, and in a few minutes we'll speak about that. You have Maduro, the dictator of Venezuela, who was recently deposed in an unbelievable nighttime action by President Trump, taken in the middle of the night from a country that is a very large country, a well-armed country, albeit a failing country, and it's punching, a country that is just complete missed potential, similar to Iran. And now, 2 days later, he's standing for trial in the United States. When you say President Trump is giving hope to the people, is that what the Iranian people are wishing for? What are they, besides just words, what actions are they praying that President Trump and possibly Israel, who's been relatively quiet, would do?
Any help in any way possible is essential for Iranian people. Despite what I see in some news lately, Iranian people need support because they are going against the regime that's basically what has been said by Prime Minister Netanyahu, by President Trump, is that Iranian government is spending all the money from the smuggled oil, from all those natural resources. Instead of spending it for their own people, for the good of their own people, they are spending it on guns, on intelligence, on disability, and doing all those wrongdoings that the Iranian government is doing. Such regime cannot be defeated only by bare hands. Yes, we need support from US. Yes, we need support from Europeans. We need it from the EU. We need it from Israel, as we have tremendous history together in this region, and we understand each other more than anyone can understand each other in this region. We are, as your foreign minister once mentioned, we are natural allies. Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean that we should have diplomatic ties or anything like that, but we are natural allies. It's a matter, Doron, there is one really important thing. If we create, with the help of US and Israel and all the countries that they support democracy and human rights, secular and plural regimes that they could bring real future to their people, we will have a stable Iran that would contribute to world economy, to world market, to world stability, and to the diplomacy and stability of the region.
Prime Minister Netanyahu, he's addressed many of these comments, I think, I'm sorry for interrupting you, in direct messages to the Iranian people, not only now, but in the months since the very brave action that he took. He sent Israeli fighter planes thousands of kilometers to strike Iran's nuclear program, to try to both, of course, protect the state of Israel, and I think he served the entire Western world, and he'll go down in history as having done this. Do the Iranian people see the actions of Prime Minister Netanyahu and the Israeli Air Force and the Israeli army as one of the key pillars of helping to defeat this regime?
Definitely they saw. But we need to be careful. Now, if we go back to 2003, Doron, in 2003, we had some elements of Iraqi people outside who give false information to the United States. And that caused a bit of a costly transition in Iraq to the United States. We need to make sure that every single action of our allies is being aligned with the real people inside Iran, the real leaders inside Iran, the real factors of movement inside Iran. Let's have an unfortunate scenario at front of us. If we have a destabilized Iran after Islamic regime, we would face civil war. We would see a country that's built into a lot of conflicts and wars that would not contribute to world economy. We would see another refugee crisis in the region and in the world. We don't want to see that. The best path forward is to contribute to unification of every single opposition group. We don't want opposition supporters and groups to fight with each other on the streets of United States and European countries. We don't want to show those pictures to the Iranian people. We don't want to see any single supporter of any ideology or party of oppositions in Iran to go and fight and to say that, oh, you are not Iranian, oh, you are a traitor. The only traitor, the only enemy of Iranian people is the Islamic Republic of Iran and their supporters. It's Khamenei, IRGC, Sepah Pastaran, Sazman Etelat, Vezaret Etelat, and those people. These are Basij. These are the enemies of Iranian people. These are the only traitors.
So it seems like, and it's very, very clear both from what you're saying and what we're saying, there's a common enemy for the good people of Iran and all of these other nations that you've, I think, very, very brilliantly laid out, that Iran is not this homogeneous one types of people. There are Kurds, there are Azeris, there are all these different people, and they have a common enemy. On the other hand, when you talk about unification, Hejar, is there a person, I mean, in the African Americans in America have Martin Luther King. You know, the Indians had Gandhi. The Americans after the Civil War had Abraham Lincoln. These powerful forces that were able to recreate a unified country after enormous degradation and splitting. Is there someone on the ground in Iran that has the power, or perhaps outside of Iran, that has the power to unite these people?
I think there are multiple faces that they can, as my great friend Dr. Roth mentioned, that they can play that glue role to bring them together. And that's what actually makes them great in the next Iran. If they don't play that role at this moment, we will see emerging leaders from inside Iran. What we see, as I said, I cannot emphasize that anymore, Doron. At this moment, Iranian people have different beliefs, have different backgrounds. Now, let me ask you one question. I know from where you are with me right now, where your studios are located, in the country of Israel, where you are from. Can we see Israel same as what it was 47 years ago? Iran has changed in the last 47 years. People of Iran has changed a lot during the last 47 years. They have different groupings and identities. As we know, humans wants to try to define themselves belonging to groups, to their families, to their nations, to their culture, to their language. We cannot ignore the respect that Azeri people has for their Azerbaijani language and nationality. We cannot disrespect Kurds for their language, for their culture, for their nationality. We cannot disrespect Arabs. So it's not Persia, it's a great Iran. Iran that needs everyone to keep it great. So if we want to build a great Iran, let's include everyone.
You know, people often look back to the time of the Shah, I think today with a very rosy coating. The Shah was overthrown. It wasn't by chance. There was relatively large popular support, it seems, at least in the West, for the overthrow of the Shah all of those years ago. And people are now calling for the return of the Shah. We hear that in the Western media. The return of the Shah really means Reza Pahlavi, which I think, correct me if I'm wrong, is the Shah's son that's been living in exile, often called the prince. Is the return of the Shah or the Shah's regime kind of the answer that could both unify the people and also respect their rights?
This is the answer that Iranian people should give. It's no one's right to give any definite answer to this. Everything can change. Everything is flexible. Everything can be changeable. Everyone can change the way they have played a role in this. I think Mr. Pahlavi, I do have respect for him. I do have respect for his family. And I do have respect for every single supporters of Mr. Pahlavi. And I definitely see them as part of that great Iran. But however, I'm saying that beside them, Mr. Pahlavi should have every single freedom fighter, every single opposition group of Iran. And instead of differentiate them or looking at them from up top or saying that we are leading this movement, we need to be a unified one force, including all of us. Keep in mind, Doron, you know that I'm a Canadian as well. I do have Canadian citizens. In Canada, we are proud to be a multicultural nation because all those colors, all those views, all those different groups, they bring in a lot of power. In Israel, you have Druze. Those Druze people, they have contributed to the stability, to the security of this country at a high level because they have been included. So at this moment, I do hope everything is possible. Everything is possible. However, we need to give it to the people of Iran. We need to give the power to the people of Iran to see what they want. We have seen different systems in the past in Iran. We have seen Wilayat al-Faqih for the last 47, 48 years. One person ruling. And before that, there was the Shah system, yes. There have been some critics, there have been some acceptance. I do have respect for everyone. Keep in mind, when I'm talking about inclusivity, that doesn't mean that supporters of Mr. Pahlavi should be excluded. I think they should be included like everyone else in that future Iran. And when they are included, when we are all together, then we will have the real power to give hope to the Iranian people, which I do believe they are ready. Iranian people are ready to take control for that tapping point. However, either we as the oppositions outside Iran, either we showed them a unified opposition force or we leave Iran to a civil war in future.
You know, if I understand that Reza Pahlavi is one option and there are other options, what it looks like today is the unifying force maybe are the protesters in the streets. Meaning that's something that perhaps people will get behind. You're mentioning that the Kurdish, 7 different Kurdish parties all just, gave their approval that people should join the protests. From your contacts and your communication inside Iran, are people afraid? The protesters, are they afraid? Are they past fear? And the bottom line, do you think they're willing to give their lives? Because unfortunately, I don't see any other way for it to take place. Are they willing to give their lives in the numbers that it would take to cause really a much larger popular uprising that includes millions and millions of people and could perhaps cause the security forces, the Iranian, the IRGC to have defectors, which would be maybe the key thing if somebody was to rise up within the military? Are those people willing to pay the ultimate price?
People of Iran has always been ready to pay the price. However, that's exactly what you pinpointed and you mentioned it greatly. We need every single corner of Iran to join this uprising. As I mentioned, yes, correct. On Thursday, we are expecting a strike throughout Iranian Kurdistan. Why? Because every single Kurdish party, from the Democratic Party of Iranian Kurdistan to Komalas, to the Free Life Party of Iranian Kurdistan, every single political party of Iranian Kurdistan unifyingly have supported the people of Ilam and Dehloran and Abdanan and all those places, and Malak Shahi in particular. And to support them, they have asked people to go for the strike. Now, if we give hope to the Azeris to join the strike and the uprising in Tabriz and Ardabil and Zanjan and Ghazvin, if we give hope to the people of Khuzestan, in Abadan, in Khorramshahr to join the uprising and the strike, if we give power to the people of Baluchistan in Zahedan, as they have been sacrificing, if we go back to the last 47 years, Doron, who has sacrificed their life as much as the Kurds and as much as the Baluchis for the freedom of Iran? And we have never, ever, one single time, any representation of the Kurdish or Baluchis or any of them, they didn't even think about doing anything else other than asking for their freedom and for asking for the citizen right within Iran over there. We need to give hope to the people of Azerbaijan, to the people of Khorasan. In Mashhad, they already started it, to the people of Turkmen Sahara, to all those people to join that uprising. When we have all these forces, we have a huge force that's ready to pay the price alone. However, we need to show them the hope. We need to show them the light at the end of the tunnel so that we could go through that bumpy start and get it there.
I know that Iranian media is controlled by the regime, closely monitored. They're able to flip a switch and turn off internet whenever they want to, and they use this relatively often in order to try to curb messages. How important is social media in the organizational influence of this revolution?
It's at extreme importance, social media at this point, and that's why Iranian regime is very hardly trying to control the connectivity of internet. So the satellite connection plays a huge role. I think in the next step, we need great help from the low orbit satellite providers such as Starlink and others to give the ability to Iranian people to be able to communicate. And each one of us has different ways of communicating with Iran. Keep in mind that some of us are very close to the Iranian border, so that we have different means of communicating with the people inside Iran. And having said that, also, I would like to mention that there is another factor within Iran that I would like to bring people's attention, our audience's attention to that there is a huge dispute right now based on the reliable information that I have from center of the power in Tehran, that there is a huge dispute between the government of Pezeshkian and IRGC right now. There is a huge conflict. The people of Iran doesn't see how weak they are when they get together, how weak Zarif has spoken in their very internal meetings, that we have information in regard to that. And we might soon see some dropping from the government cabinet.
So you're saying that the military arm, the IRGC, is at odds with the official Iranian regime?
Exactly. Iranian government, the government of Pezeshkian, the cabinet, they have a huge dispute. They do think that the Pezeshkian's government has not been able to solve the issues of people. They see them as the reason for the uprising, ignoring the real facts that Iranian people are not just doing the uprising only for their economic situation. They do the uprising for their freedom, for their human rights, for the democracy, for the secular government that they are hoping for. This is what they are hoping for. So I assume that we would see more dispute, more fractions within the actual regime between different groups as we see it. Keep in mind, there is an interesting point this time, Doron. We never saw that Iranian state media mentioning those uprisings and people demonstrating at all. Agencies like Tasnim, like Mehr, which are very close to IRGC, this time they are releasing sometimes some information and news about this uprising. You know what? Because they're using it as a leverage against Pezeshkian's government.
Ah, interesting.
So we see
that's fascinating. This is fascinating.
The fractions within Islamic regime that we see, Khamenei has lost control. Khamenei has not ever been that weak. Those information, when I say that our job outside Iran is not just to do slogans, we need real information from very, very inside of Iran, from the government, from the regime, from the people, from the street, to bring it to the world and give the real picture of Iran outside. At this moment, there are fractions within Iranian regime. IRGC has a lot of issues with the Pezeshkian's government. Pezeshkian's government is very, very hopeless, totally hopeless. They have no idea what to do. And Khamenei has lost the control over the regime.
So this is fascinating. I think you just brought something up, Hejar, that is not understood by the West, which is what we're seeing is Iranian media, like you said, for the first time are showing certain protests and are acknowledging. They've even said, we acknowledge your protests, we acknowledge the economic values that you're talking about, and we want to do something to fix it. They've called in leaders. The way this is being presented in the West is that this is Khamenei, that Khamenei has woken up and is saying, okay, I realize that we're going down the tubes and that we have to kind of reach out to the people. But we are saying something very different. This is reflecting a fracture between the IRGC and the cabinet, and the IRGC are using Iranian media to show the protests to put leverage against the cabinet. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly, because they're desperate. Now we are at the point that IRGC tries to save itself. Khamenei tries to save itself. And Pezeshkian tries to show that, I'm a good person. If we have done something wrong, we need to fix it. This is exactly what he said in the last 48 hours. That if the people are asking for something, and if we have done something wrong, we need to make sure to fix it. You know why? Because he lost the support from the actual regime. In fact, Khamenei has never said that we need to be soft on people. Even in the recent days, Khamenei again blamed the Iranian people, naming those people, those demonstrators on the street as people who they want to destabilize Iran, people who are belonging to the international services, people who belong to the opposition groups. Those people over there are real Iranians, that they are struggling for their basic rights. Yes, the fractions within Islamic regime as at a very high level, and we need to use that point actually to unify again to the Iranian people, to show them how weak the regime is, to show them that we all together. Now, within the 12-day war, we saw how weak Iranian defense system is. We saw how much they did lie to people, saying that even spending all those money on those proxies, on those defense systems, on those atomic bombs and nuclear program and everything, that it wasn't even spent in the right way to defend them. We saw that their air force collapsed
when Prime Minister Netanyahu, Hejar, when Prime Minister Netanyahu calls on the Iranian people and says he supports the protests, supports their freedom. What does this do for the average Iranian?
It's a hope, but of course we need more than that. We need more than that. We need, there are accounts on internet. Of course, we cannot 100% confirm who they are belong to or who they are representing to. We need power beside people on those streets. We need power beside those. Outside, we need the force of the supporting democracy system. Every single country in the world, including United States, European Unions, all the other factors, to push those opposition leaders, to bring them to one row and say to you know what? You either give hope to those people that they are struggling or let them select their own leaders inside Iran.
Well, I think that Prime Minister Netanyahu has certainly showed that he's willing to use that power if necessary, and so is President Trump. And I guess as the days unfold, we'll see if that comes to play a role. I want to follow up and just draw this to a close because we do have to close, and I greatly appreciate your time. I want to ask you a question. If, God forbid, these protests do not succeed, what does that mean for Iran?
Depends. What is the meaning of not succeeding? What is the expectations from those protests? Yes, we do know the ultimate goal. Doron, everything is possible. Let's be optimistic. This is the hope we need to give it to the Iranian people. This is my message. My message is, if we are unified, if we are all inclusive, if we show Iranian people that we are beside them, we are not on top of them. They are far, far, far ahead of us, though. They are far ahead of us. Yes, when I was inside Iran, when I was actively against the Iranian government inside Iran and putting my own life and my friends, my family, my close ones to risk over there, yes, that was the time that I was at the front line. But as of now, who is at the front line is the Iranian people on those streets of Malakshah, on those streets of Tehran, on those streets of Mashhad, on those streets of Kermanshah, Elam, every single city that we have seen those uprising. This is the front line. Our job, our mission, our cause is to bring every single attention to those people on the front line. Let's get together, let's back them up, and hopefully this is the time, and we'll see a future, a bright future for a great Iran very soon. I do believe in that.
Hejar, you've given phenomenal insights to me today and to the True East audience, the True East community, and I hopefully this message is going to expand. I hope that this podcast is going to be forwarded. And amidst the incredible call that you're saying for unity is the key. When people feel unity, they'll join the protests. You've also added a very important element, which is that fracture, the fracture between the IRGC and the cabinet. And if that fracture could be the beginning of the downfall of the regime, and even more so, when we see Iranian state TV showing the protests, that's almost like a smoke signal from the IRGC, we stand against the cabinet.
Exactly. And they want to show that it is an economy uprising to take it away from its main objective and show it's only an economy situation that people are against. And it's because of the fault of the government of Pezeshkian. I tremendously thank you, Doron, for the opportunity. I really appreciate it. The pleasure is all mine. And I hope that we can all together, with the help of the audience of this podcast of yours, which I think it has a very crucial and instrumental role in the in conveying those messages to the people who they need to hear those, to continue on. And I thank you very much a lot again.
Hejar, stay safe, and we hope to have you on again. God bless.
Thank you. God bless.